Okay, so what I've been doing here is making a pattern for my hands for my marionette. And the hands are going to be fairly big and oversized. So I've drawn on here, you can see where I've drawn on here a couple of times with pencil. And then I've reorganized my lines and I finally put them in here with pen. So what's going to happen is my thumb is going to be separated from the fingers. The index finger is going to be sort of big and chunky, but it's going to be away from the other three fingers. And it's going to have a slight cup to the hand. So I have this piece of plastic that I'm going to, I should say styrofoam, that I'm going to transfer my pattern from here onto here. So the way that I'm going to do is I'm going to make one hand and I'm going to draw one hand and make a pattern of one hand, and then I'm going to flip it over to the other side to make a left and a right. So I'll show you that in just a second. I'm going to cut this out with just a pair of scissors, and then we'll transfer the pattern onto our styrofoam. Okay, so that's my pattern after it's been cut out. And we're just going to take it, move this stuff to the side. Now we're just going to put it on our piece of styrofoam. And we're just going to simply transfer the lines from the styrofoam, from the pattern onto the styrofoam, I should say. So and there you go. So now you have a right and a left, and I'm just going to keep my pattern out for reference. And so now I'm going to say that this is the right, and I'm going to actually draw that on there, and this is the left. So to begin doing this, you're just going to simply take your utility knife, cut across it a couple of times. And snap it in half, and then start taking all of your extra material off here to make your hands. All right, so I'm going to work at this, taking little bits off at a time, and I might have to reuse my pattern and, you know, get the palm drawn in here and other things like that. But yeah, so that's how we're going to use patterns. Okay, so I've shot some quick time lapse of me carving this away, but essentially what I did was I carved off, if this was the hand, I carved off the front of the fingers first to give it a little bit of a cup, and then I carved off the back of the thumb and the top of the thumb to look like the hand was curved in. Again, this is a left hand, all right? And everything from here is just going to be fine carving detail to get it to look like a hand. But we don't want it to make, we want it to be a little cartoonish, or I want it to be a little cartoonish. So I'm not going for, you know, realistic human hand. I'm going for a cartoonic kind of hand. All right, so that's my left. So now I just got to do the right one, and then we're ready for the fine carving. So for this part, you're going to need just a regular pair of pliers and a pair of wire cutters if your wire's too long, but probably just a pair of pliers. So I'm going to just simply bend this halfway. So I'm going to bend this in half, like this. And then here where this comes together is going to be my first loop. And all I'm going to do is that's the loop. And so I'm just going to grab that with the pair of pliers, and I'm just going to twist it one time. That's it. And that's where my head is going to connect to. And so now I have to figure out, you know, how far do I want it to be to the first arm? So how long do I want the shoulder to be? And I want the shoulder to come down to, you know, you can hold your thing up to your mannequin so you see how big it is.
Where's Zoe?
So now that I hold this up onto here, I see that perhaps my neck would be a little bit too long, but that's easy to fix. We'll just chop a little bit off this dowel so that we don't have that much length, and it'll be like that. So I think I want my shoulder to come out probably about this far. So if we see the shoulder is going to come out about that far, we need a little bit extra for where the loop is going to be. So we're just going to simply bend that. Bend it all the way around like this with our hand. Okay, so you have that. Just gonna check and make sure I got that on camera. Yeah. And then we're just gonna grab that with our pliers again. And we're just gonna put one simple twist on that. Just one. So it's gonna be twisted like that. And then of course, we're gonna do the same thing to the other side. And this is all gonna be covered up again. I want you to remember that. So I'm gonna go about this far, like this. Sorry if I'm getting off camera a little bit, but then we're gonna grab this and we're just gonna give it one simple twist, just like that. Now you see they're pretty close together, pretty close to the same length. And again, it doesn't make any difference. We're gonna cover this all with paper mache, so it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. But this is starting to be a pretty good body size compared to what it is that we're going to do for the head. So the head and the body seem to be a relatively good size. So now we're just going to do the bottom down here, and we're going to make our body come down about this far. I'm thinking maybe a little bit further than that, about this far. Okay, so we'll do the same thing on the other side, and just put a bend in it to where we think it's going to go. And I think it's going to be about that far. That looks pretty good. Okay, so the first one right here, again, we're just going to grab this, bend it around, grab this with the pliers, give it one single twist. There goes my head. Grab the other side of the body, which is here. And give this a simple twist. I say a simple twist, but you see I'm kind of fighting with it a little bit. That's okay. And again, just check and see if they're relatively the same length. And they are. This one's a little wonky. Again, remember you're going to cover all this with paper mache. All right, so that's what the body's going to be. Something like that. So we're going to cut these off and then twist these two things together. All right, I'm going to cut this off. And then cut this off. Like that. And then we're just going to simply twist these two together, and that's going to be our body. And then you can decide later how wide you want to make it at the hips. This would be the hips down here. All right. So this is my little frame, and I thought I should just show you. So I decided the hips are going to be about this wide on this, and we're just going to take these two end pieces and loop them around like that, and that's really it. Just press them down flat so you don't hurt yourself. Okay. And then you'll see it's just now going to be a matter of you sort of pressing this down and getting the shape for what it is that you think this body's going to be like. I'm going to twist this around a little bit for this, and I'm going to twist this around for there. All right, so this is sort of the quick and fast and easy way to make a body frame for your marionette. Now, of course, we're going to cover all this with however thick it is that you want the chest to be and however thick that you want the abdomen to be. If you were making a female, you might make it a little bit narrower at the shoulders and a little bit wider at the hips. But again, that's a personal choice. All right, so we're back here today and we're going to be working on the body of our marionette. And this is the wire frame that I had previously created. And this is just done with one solid piece of wire. You'll see there's a previous video where I put this together. And I had originally talked about using this on another marionette head, but I think I'm going to use it for this guy. And I had previously talked about using this wire frame to put some paper mache on. And so I thought about that, and I thought, you know, you're really never going to see this, and this is really not something that is ever going to be visible to anybody other than yourself, the creator. So I thought about, why don't I just use this purple pink insulation? And so after I made my wire frame, I roughly cut out a piece of this, and I just laid this on top of the insulation and drew around it and cut it out. And so I have this piece. And so I'm just going to put this piece onto this wire frame and just sort of muscle it into place there. And so you'll see it goes all the way around. And then I'm just going to take another piece of wire, a fairly thin piece of copper wire, and I'm just going to put it through here, through the side here, and I'm just going to double it over here. So I've just doubled it over there, and I'm just going to bring it around. Sorry, I'm off camera a little bit. I'm just going to bring it around and tie it off on this side. I'm just going to twist these two pieces of wire together. Anyways, I'll do that with my pliers here. Just grab a pair of pliers. And grab these two things together and just give it a little twist. And tuck those back in there for safety so that nobody gets hurt by those little ends. And that's it. So that will keep that in there perfectly fine. So there's no reason to paper mache this. I'm going to put clothing over top of this. All right, so now this is going to go onto here. And so I'm going to set up and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that. So we're going to talk about attaching all of the body parts. All right, so let's talk about attaching the body parts. So this is the head for this marionette. And if you remember, there's a dowel in the bottom that has a little metal hook on it now. So this is just a simple, tiny little hook. All right, I think it's a 9/16 hook to tell you the truth. And then remember on the top of him, there was another dowel that I drilled in there. And so this is another tiny little hook put on there. And these were the legs that you had seen before. And so each one of these legs, so this is the bottom part of the leg with the foot, has a hook, and there's another hook. And I've just simply taken a plastic zip tie and tied those two pieces together with enough space that they move freely. All right. So maybe about a centimeter, somewhere between a centimeter and a centimeter and a half, 7 or 8 millimeters. Then there's another tiny little hook put on the top of the knee. So not the lower part of the leg, but the top part of the leg. And then of course, this is where the hip is going to join onto our wire frame that we were just looking at. Okay. So once you get your zip tie on there, you can just take a pair of, this is just a regular pair of wire cutters, and cut that off. All right, so that you don't have that excess hanging out. And the same with the other leg. You know, so get them so they're, you know, about the same distance apart, and then just clip that off. And it'll shoot across the room like that. And I also have on here, this is the control for the other leg, the left leg. And it's just above the knee. And again, there's another attachment here for to attach the leg onto the hip. All right, so I'm going to show you how I do that real quickly. Here are the hands. So there's a left hand and a right hand. And then these are going to be the upper arm pieces. And again, this is done exactly the same. It's two pieces of dowel that are cut equal lengths. The end of it is drilled, and again, there's a small hook put into the top. And you can get these hooks fairly inexpensively. You're usually going to get a little box like this. This one has set 12 pieces in it, and I think this was under $1. So less than $1. You'll also find them in little bags like this. Okay, again, under $1. So I drilled a pilot hole, just as I've shown you before, and then put this in. The pilot hole is a starter hole that will allow your hook to go in fairly easily. So what we're going to do now is we're going to join this onto here. All right, and we're just going to use, again, these are zip ties, they're called. And you can get these really super inexpensively at any hardware store. So the one end just simply goes into the other end, and when you pull it, you'll hear. Okay, so I'm going to put this in one side, this in the other side, and then I'm going to put these two things together, and you'll hear it zip together. Again, you want to leave a little bit of space. That's probably a little bit too much. You need to leave a little space. And there we go. All right. So then we're just going to simply do the other one. Grab the zip tie again, put this in. Since both of these pieces are exactly the same, there's no right and left. Okay. I don't know if I need to say that or not, but somebody would surely ask me the question. So here we go. And then, you know, just hold them up together and make sure they're roughly the same. This one here might be a little bit longer. So you can't undo this. Once these are on there, if they're not the wrong length, you would have to cut them off. Luckily, zip ties are pretty cheap. I bought 300 of them the other day for $10, so they're not very much money, and you'll find a million uses for them. All right, so there we go. So those are the two arms. So all that has to happen now is those arms go onto these, this, and this. All right, so I'm going to get set up and I'll show you that part. So this is that container of zip ties that I was just mentioning a minute ago. Okay, it's got 300. Sorry, actually, that's not true. It's got 300 plus 200. It actually has 500 in it. And this was about 10 bucks. All right, so they're all different sizes, different colors and stuff. So pretty cheap. So we're gonna use these red ones. And again, I'm simply just gonna take, so this is our body. And I'm gonna figure out which arm goes on which side. I'm gonna put this on here. I'm gonna put the hand on here and make sure it lines up properly before you zip tie it together, because like I said, there's not really the only undo to this is to completely take it apart. And that seems to be that the hand is hanging upside down. See if I can back this up a little bit. So the hand is hanging, not the hand you want to hang the front, the thumb should be facing forward. All right, so think that the thumb really needs to face forward. But there's other ways to adjust this. Anyways, I'm gonna put the zip tie on. And again, I'm talking about making it about that loose. Okay. So maybe about 1 centimeter, but loose enough that the arm will swing. Okay, and then we're gonna do the same on the other side. We'll take our zip tie. I'm gonna put it through here. And I'm going to put it through here and through here. Zip tie it on there. So that's going to be the same for every joint on this Marionette. Right? So every joint is going to get zip tied. Now I'm going to put the legs on, and then I'm going to put the head on. And once I get that done, I'll come back and we'll have another look. All right?